The air crackled with an almost palpable energy, a vibrant hum that promised an unforgettable spectacle. It was a bustling Saturday afternoon, the kind where the promise of entertainment hung heavy in the warm Texan air. The American Airlines Center in Dallas was a beehive of activity, its massive structure thrumming with the anticipation of the WWE event about to explode within its walls. Fans, young and old, streamed towards the entrances, their excited chatter blending into a joyous symphony. Everywhere you looked, there were T-shirts emblazoned with superstar logos, foam fingers waving enthusiastically, and the general buzz of a community united by their love for larger-than-life heroes and villains. Amidst this joyous throng, a small figure stood out, her eyes wide with uncontainable glee. This was Nia, a bright-eyed 8-year-old black girl, barely able to contain her excitement. Her small frame bounced with every step, clad in a crisp, new John Cena t-shirt, the iconic Never Give Up slogan a testament to her unwavering enthusiasm. By her side walked her Aunt Carol, a warm, reassuring presence who had orchestrated this entire magical outing. Aunt Carol, observing Nia's infectious joy, couldn't help but smile. She had bought these tickets as a surprise, a special treat for her niece who lived and breathed WWE. Nia, bless her heart, was a perpetual motion machine of wrestling facts and fervent declarations. She talked nonstop, her voice a rapid-fire commentary on her favorite wrestlers, the strength of Bianca Belair, the agility of Ricochet, the undeniable charisma of Roman Reigns. Every turn of her head brought a new observation, a new question, a new burst of pure, unadulterated fan passion. "Auntie Carol, do you think John Cena will be here? I really hope he is. And what about Becky Lynch? She's so cool. Remember when she beat Ronda Rousey? That was amazing." Nia chattered, her words tumbling out faster than Aunt Carol could possibly respond. Aunt Carol just squeezed her hand, a silent acknowledgement of the child's boundless energy. She loved seeing Nia so happy, so utterly immersed in her world of wrestling dreams. They approached the entrance, a specific, less crowded one, that Aunt Carol navigated towards with purpose. This wasn't just any entrance. It was the VIP entrance, a special perk Aunt Carol had managed to secure through a friend of a friend who worked in event management. She felt a thrill of satisfaction, knowing this would make Nia's experience even more special. But as they drew closer, a figure emerged from the stream of people, a man with a stern expression and a headset firmly planted on his ear. This was Gary, a member of the event staff. He intercepted them with a practiced, almost robotic motion. Gary, without offering a greeting, extended a hand for their tickets. Aunt Carol, still smiling, presented them 2 sleek, official-looking VIP passes. Gary took them, his eyes scanning the details on the paper. Then his gaze shifted. He looked at Nia, a quick, almost imperceptible flick of his eyes. Before returning his attention to the tickets, he looked at them again, then back at Nia, a subtle furrow appearing between his brows. The smile on Aunt Carol's face began to falter. "There might be a problem here," Gary stated, his voice flat, devoid of the friendly welcome other staff members were offering. Aunt Carol, confused, replied, "A problem? No, these are VIP tickets. I have the confirmation right here." She gestured towards her phone, ready to pull up the digital proof, but Gary just shook his head slightly, a dismissive gesture that spoke volumes. He wasn't rude, not yet, but his tone was off, tinged with an inexplicable skepticism. "I need you to just step aside for a moment, please," he instructed, his gaze already drifting past them to the next group approaching. Aunt Carol and Nia moved to the side, a small pocket of uncertainty in the bustling walkway. As they stood there, a peculiar pattern began to emerge. Other families, mostly white, with similar VIP tickets, were waved through without a second glance. Their tickets were barely checked, their access granted with a polite nod and a welcoming smile. Nia, sharp for her age, noticed this. Her bouncing energy began to wane, replaced by a slight tilt of her head, a confused frown creasing her brow. She looked up at Aunt Carol, her large, innocent eyes silently questioning the disparity. Aunt Carol tried to maintain her composure, a tight smile pasted on her face. But a knot of frustration was beginning to tighten in her stomach. Gary, after letting several more groups pass unhindered, called over another staff member, a woman named Sharon. Sharon, with a similarly detached demeanor, barely looked at Aunt Carol or Nia. She glanced quickly at Nia, then made a quick, murmured comment to Gary, their heads inclining conspiratorially. They whispered, their eyes darting towards Nia and Aunt Carol, a subtle finger pointing in their direction. The feeling of being scrutinized, of being singled out, grew stronger. Nia, who moments ago had been practically vibrating with excitement, now sagged slightly, her shoulders drooping. Her initial confusion was slowly morphing into something else, a dawning disappointment. She tugged gently on Aunt Carol's shirt. "Are we not going in, Auntie?" Her voice was small, barely a whisper, the bright spark in her eyes dimming. The innocent joy that had filled her face just minutes before was now replaced by a fragile vulnerability. Finally, Gary detached himself from Sharon and approached them again. His expression remained unchanged, impassive. "Look," he began, his voice still flat, but with a new, subtly condescending undertone. "These VIP tickets are usually for special guests. Are you sure you have the right ones?" He emphasized special guests in a way that felt loaded, heavy with unspoken implications. Aunt Carol, her patience wearing thin, assured him, "Yes, I am absolutely sure. I can show you the proof of purchase on my phone, the transaction details, everything." She held up her phone again, prepared to fight for their entry, but Gary just shook his head, a final, unyielding gesture. "I think there's been a mistake. You'll have to go to the general entrance." He pointed vaguely towards the distant snaking line that stretched for what seemed like miles, a sea of impatient fans awaiting their turn. Nia's face, already clouded with disappointment, fell completely. Her lower lip trembled slightly, and a single tear welled in the corner of her eye, a clear testament to the crushing blow this news delivered. This was the moment the audience understood. Something was profoundly wrong. Nia's love affair with WWE was a relatively recent development, a vibrant spark ignited about a year prior. Before that, her world revolved around school, cartoons, and the comforting, if sometimes distant, presence of her mother, Sarah. Sarah was a force of nature, a strong, independent black woman who navigated the complexities of single parenthood with unwavering dedication. Her days were long, her work hours often stretching into the late evenings, and her job frequently took her away from home for extended periods. It was during these times, when Sarah was traveling for business, that WWE had stepped in, filling a small void in Nia's routine and blossoming into a full-blown obsession. The colorful characters, the dramatic storylines, the sheer athleticism, it all captivated Nia's young imagination, offering a thrilling escape from the quiet reality of her mom's frequent absences. Sarah, a private individual by nature, was particularly reserved about the specifics of her profession. When Nia or Aunt Carol asked, she would offer vague but reassuring answers, typically stating she traveled for business or was on assignment. She never elaborated, never offered details, And while Aunt Carol sometimes wondered, she respected Sarah's boundaries. As Sarah's older sister, Aunt Carol played a crucial role in Nia's life, stepping in as a steadfast caregiver whenever Sarah's demanding schedule called her away. Aunt Carol understood that Sarah worked in a challenging environment, a phrase Sarah often used, and she knew her sister wouldn't confide in her unless it was absolutely necessary. So, she didn't pry, choosing instead to focus on providing Nia with stability and love. The VIP tickets, the very source of their current predicament, had been Aunt Carol's brainchild, a grand gesture of love for her wrestling-obsessed niece. She'd secured them through a fortuitous connection, a former colleague who had transitioned into the fast-paced world of sports marketing. These weren't mere general admission tickets. They were coveted VIP passes, a testament to Aunt Carol's determination to make this WWE event truly special for Nia. She knew how much Nia adored wrestling, how her eyes would light up at the mention of her favorite superstars. The cost had been considerable, but seeing Nia's unbridled excitement, Aunt Carol knew it was worth every penny. Nia, in her innocent world, often spoke of a future where she too would step into the squared circle. Her role models weren't just the male titans of WWE. She admired the strength and grace of female wrestlers like Bianca Belair and Naomi, seeing in them reflections of her own burgeoning power. She would practice their signature moves in the living room, mimicking their confident stances and triumphant gestures. Much to Aunt Carol's endless amusement, the couch often became a makeshift wrestling ring, and her stuffed animals, willing if somewhat inanimate, opponents. Sarah, unfortunately, couldn't make it to this particular event. She was, as usual, on assignment, a phrase that Nia had come to associate with her mom's important, mysterious work. While a tiny pang of sadness always accompanied her mom's absence, Nia understood. Her mom had important work, and Nia had her Aunt Carol. There were subtle clues, if one looked closely, that Sarah's business might be more intimately connected to the world of WWE than she let on. Perhaps a quick, almost subliminal shot in a family photo, where Sarah was in the background, her face slightly blurred, but the setting undeniably looked like a wrestling training facility, complete with ropes and turnbuckles. Or a fleeting glimpse of her working out with an intensity that went beyond typical gym routines, her muscles defined, her movements precise and powerful. These were details that Aunt Carol, in her respectful distance, hadn't pieced together, and certainly Nia hadn't. To Nia, her mom was just her mom, busy, loving, and strong. The build-up to this WWE event had been a crescendo of anticipation for Nia. She had meticulously counted down the days on a homemade calendar, each crossed-out square bringing her closer to her dream. The John Cena shirt she wore, now slightly rumpled from her earlier excitement, had been chosen with careful consideration, a symbol of her allegiance and enthusiasm. She had even crafted a small, colorful "Go WWE" sign, its vibrant letters a testament to her pure, unadulterated joy. Her excitement was a tangible thing, radiating from her in waves, a beacon of innocent belief in a world where heroes battled and dreams came true. And that was the heart of the matter. Nia, in her 8 years, viewed the world through a lens of wonder and possibility. A WWE event wasn't just a show. It was a pilgrimage, a place where the impossible felt within reach, where good triumphed, and where her heroes walked among mortals. Her excitement was pure, untainted by cynicism or the harsh realities of prejudice. This made the current situation, the dismissive glares, the whispered conversations, the outright denial of entry, all the more jarring. It wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a direct assault on her innocence, a cruel shattering of a dream that, for her, held all the magic in the world. The discrimination she was now experiencing, subtle yet undeniable, was hitting harder precisely because it was aimed at a child whose only crime was her boundless, innocent eagerness to witness her heroes. Back at the arena entrance, the air thickened with Aunt Carol's mounting frustration. She took a deep breath, trying to explain once more, her voice still calm but edged with steel, that their tickets were legitimate VIP passes. Gary and Sharon, however, remained an impenetrable wall of dismissiveness, their expressions unchanging, their ears seemingly deaf to reason. Gary, now leaning into his role as gatekeeper, began to invoke the hallowed words of corporate bureaucracy, company policy, and security protocols. He used these vague, catch-all phrases like a shield, deflecting Aunt Carol's increasingly pointed questions, his eyes artfully avoiding hers. He rattled off general rules, never quite explaining why those rules applied specifically to them, or why other families, moments before, had been exempt. Nia, meanwhile, had retreated into a quiet observation. Her small body was still, her eyes darting between the unyielding staff and the steady stream of people being waved through. She saw the other kids, their skin lighter than hers, their families welcomed without question. A subtle, internal shift was occurring within her young mind. The dots, disparate and confusing just moments ago, were beginning to connect. Even at her tender age, a nascent understanding of unfairness, of being singled out, began to form. The vibrant spark of excitement that had animated her earlier was now entirely extinguished, replaced by a deep cloud of confusion and a prickling sense of injustice. The magic of the day was being systematically dismantled, piece by painful piece. Aunt Carol, sensing Nia's growing distress and fueled by her own rising indignation, stood her ground. "I insist on speaking to a manager," she declared, her voice firmer this time. She pulled out her phone, already navigating to her banking app, ready to flash proof of purchase, bank statements, anything to validate their presence. She was not backing down. This was no longer just about getting into a WWE event. It was about dignity, about asserting their right to be treated equally. Gary, with a visible sigh of reluctance, finally relented. He mumbled something into his headset, his gaze still fixed somewhere over Aunt Carol's shoulder, as if trying to conjure the manager through sheer willpower. A few tense moments later, a stern-looking man in a crisp suit, radiating an aura of self-importance, strode towards them. This was Mr. Henderson, the manager. He arrived, his expression already set, and immediately turned his attention to Gary and Sharon. They, seizing the opportunity, launched into a hushed rapid-fire account, painting Aunt Carol as difficult, disruptive, and utterly uncooperative. Their words were carefully chosen, designed to preempt any sympathy Mr. Henderson might feel, to frame Aunt Carol as the antagonist in this unfolding drama. Mr. Henderson, after hearing their one-sided narrative, barely afforded Aunt Carol a chance to speak. He cast a dismissive glance at Nia, then at Aunt Carol, his face a mask of practiced indifference. "Look, ma'am," he began, his voice cold and devoid of empathy, "if there's an issue with your tickets, you need to resolve it with the vendor. We can't hold up the line." His tone was final, a brick wall erected between them and any hope of resolution. The implication was clear. They were an inconvenience, a problem to be shunted aside, and their valid tickets were irrelevant. It was too much for Nia. The weight of the adult's behavior, the feeling of being unwanted, of being a problem, finally broke through her fragile composure. She began to cry, silently at first, her small shoulders shaking. She tried to hide her face, burying it against Aunt Carol's leg, her small body trembling with suppressed sobs. The tears were a silent testament to the crushing disappointment, the raw hurt of being denied not just entry, but dignity. Seeing Nia's quiet tears ignited a furious fire in Aunt Carol. The slow burn of annoyance flared into a blazing inferno of rage. Her voice, which had been controlled and rational, now rose, demanding to know why they were being treated this way. "Why are we being singled out?" she challenged, her voice vibrating with indignation. She gestured around them, pointing to the obvious disparity in treatment, the stark contrast between their unwelcome reception and the easy passage of others. "Is it because we look different? Is that why our valid tickets are suddenly problematic?" Mr. Henderson, confronted directly, became defensive. His stern demeanor hardened. "If you continue to cause a disturbance, I'll have to ask you to leave the premises," he threatened, his voice laced with menace. It was a thinly veiled threat, an attempt to silence her, to dismiss their legitimate grievances by framing her protest as a transgression. He was effectively threatening to kick them out, despite the undeniable validity of their passes. The injustice of it all was suffocating. Aunt Carol felt a sickening wave of helplessness wash over her, quickly followed by a surge of renewed anger. She didn't want to make a scene, didn't want to further ruin Nia's already shattered day. But she also wouldn't let this blatant discrimination go unchallenged. Her hand instinctively went to her pocket, pulling out her phone. She would record this. She would capture their faces, their words, their dismissive attitudes. She hoped, with a desperate flicker of defiance, that documenting this interaction would somehow force accountability, that the cold, unblinking eye of the camera would expose the unfairness they were enduring. She pressed record, her finger trembling slightly, a silent vow to fight for her niece, for their right to be there, and for the principle of fairness that was being so cruelly trampled upon. Aunt Carol raised her phone, its camera lens a silent, unblinking eye, and began to record. Her voice, though still trembling with a mixture of anger and resolve, was clear and steady as she stated the date, the time, and their precise location at the American Airlines Center. She articulated, with stark precision, the events unfolding before them: the denial of entry despite valid VIP tickets, the dismissive attitude of the staff, and the overt discrimination they were experiencing. The act of recording immediately shifted the dynamic. Gary, Sharon, and Mr. Henderson, who moments before had exuded an air of smug authority, visibly recoiled. Their faces, previously set in stone, now betrayed a flicker of discomfort, a dawning realization that their actions were being documented, preserved, and could potentially be used against them. Mr. Henderson, ever the opportunist, seized upon the recording as a fresh justification for his escalating aggression. "You're creating a public disturbance," he declared, his voice rising, a theatrical performance of indignation. "I'm calling security." He spun the narrative, attempting to cast Aunt Carol as the instigator, the unruly guest disrupting the peace, rather than the victim of their prejudiced behavior. It was a classic deflection, a desperate attempt to shift blame and control the narrative. Nia, witnessing this fresh wave of adult hostility, was now openly sobbing. Her small body shook uncontrollably, her face contorted in a mixture of fear and profound sadness. Her innocent dream of a magical day had been shattered, replaced by a bewildering nightmare of conflict and rejection. She couldn't comprehend why they were being treated so cruelly, why the adults, who were supposed to be helpful, were instead causing her so much pain. The once bright arena lights now seemed harsh and unforgiving, mirroring the coldness of the people around them. Within moments, two security guards materialized, their large frames and black uniforms adding an intimidating presence to the already tense scene. They moved with a practiced, detached efficiency, their gazes sweeping over the small group. Aunt Carol, despite the fear now gnawing at her, attempted to explain the situation to them, articulating their valid tickets and the unjust treatment. But the guards, seemingly pre-briefed by Mr. Henderson, or simply conditioned to side with management, showed little interest in her account. Their expressions remained impassive, their posture unyielding. One of the security guards stepped forward, his voice gruff and unyielding. "Ma'am, you need to either go to the general entrance or leave the property." He didn't even bother to glance at the VIP tickets Aunt Carol held, crumpled now in her shaking hand. The directive was absolute, a non-negotiable ultimatum. It was clear they had no intention of investigating, no desire to understand. Their only purpose was to enforce the will of their superiors, regardless of the blatant injustice. But Aunt Carol, despite the fear gripping her, refused to yield. A fierce resolve hardened her gaze. "We have valid VIP tickets," she stated, her voice unwavering, a testament to her determination. "We are not leaving until we get what we paid for, or until someone explains why we're being singled out." She stood her ground, a lone figure of defiance against the growing tide of authority. Her protective instincts for Nia had overridden any lingering fear of confrontation. The standoff continued, the air thick with unspoken tension. A small crowd, drawn by the raised voices and the presence of security, began to gather around them. Some onlookers appeared confused, their brows furrowed in concern, while others simply stared, their faces a mixture of curiosity and judgment. The commotion was undeniable, a public spectacle unfolding at the entrance of a major event. Through her tears, Nia's small voice, barely a whisper, pierced through the cacophony. "Auntie, let's just go home. I don't want to be here anymore." Her plea, raw with distress, broke Aunt Carol's heart. It was the sound of a child's dream crumbling, of innocence being tarnished. The thought of giving up, of retreating in defeat, flashed through Aunt Carol's mind. But then she looked at Nia's tear-streaked face and hardened her resolve once more. She couldn't let them win. She couldn't teach Nia that it was acceptable to be treated this way. In a moment of pure desperation, a forgotten number surfaced in Aunt Carol's memory. Sarah's work number. She rarely called it, knowing how demanding Sarah's job was, how precious her time. But this, she realized, was an emergency, a crisis far beyond anything she could handle alone. She stepped slightly aside, shielding Nia with her body, and quickly dialed. The phone rang once, twice, then a click. Sarah answered, her voice slightly out of breath, but impeccably professional. Aunt Carol, struggling to keep her voice steady, launched into a rapid explanation. The VIP tickets, the staff's discrimination, Nia's profound distress, the threat of being removed from the arena. She recited the names of the staff members involved, painting a vivid, urgent picture of the injustice. On the other end of the line, Sarah's voice underwent a subtle but unmistakable transformation. The professional edge sharpened, becoming colder, imbued with an underlying steel that sent a shiver down Aunt Carol's spine. "I understand, Carol," Sarah said, her voice now dangerously calm, each word precise and deliberate. "Stay exactly where you are. Do not move. I'm on my way." The line disconnected, leaving Aunt Carol with a potent mix of fear, hope, and an unsettling sense of anticipation. Aunt Carol hung up the phone, the cold plastic still pressed against her ear, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. Hope, sharp and sudden, mingled with a deep, unsettling anxiety. She knew Sarah was formidable, a force to be reckoned with in her own sphere, but Aunt Carol had never witnessed her sister navigate a situation quite like this. The quiet certainty in Sarah's voice, the abruptness of the hang-up, left her with a sense of impending, yet unknown consequence. What exactly did "on my way" entail when Sarah was supposedly on assignment? The security guards remained, stoic and unmoving, their presence a constant heavy weight. Gary, Sharon, and Mr. Henderson, having successfully orchestrated their small victory, exchanged smug glances, a silent testament to their perceived triumph. They had, in their minds, neutralized the problem. Nia, still clinging to Aunt Carol's side, her small body trembling slightly, made valiant efforts to stifle her sobs, her face blotchy and swollen from tears. The indignity of the situation had etched itself onto her innocent features. The minutes stretched, each one feeling like an eternity, punctuated only by the distant roar of the crowd inside the arena, a sound that only served to highlight their exclusion. Then, subtle at first, a ripple of something different began to spread through the periphery of the gathering crowd. A hush, almost imperceptible, fell over a section of onlookers. Heads began to turn, eyes widening, following an unseen trajectory. A collective murmur, like the rustling of leaves before a storm, started to build. And then she appeared. A figure, radiating an undeniable aura of purpose and authority, strode purposefully towards them from deeper within the arena's confines. Her movements were fluid, powerful, each step deliberate and confident. She moved with the unmistakable bearing of someone accustomed to commanding attention, someone who belonged. It was Sarah. But this wasn't the Sarah Aunt Carol knew from family gatherings or hurried phone calls. This wasn't the Sarah who would politely say she was traveling for business. This Sarah was transformed. She wore a sleek, form-fitting WWE jacket, custom-made, emblazoned with a prominent, recognizable logo that seemed to hum with power. Her hair, usually pulled back simply, was styled with an intricate braid that cascaded over one shoulder, clearly prepared for performance, not a mundane business meeting. Her expression was confident, almost fierce, a mask of controlled intensity that seemed to promise swift, decisive action. The effect on Gary, Sharon, and Mr. Henderson was instantaneous and dramatic. Their smug expressions melted away, replaced by a dawning horror that spread across their faces like an icy wave. Their eyes, previously narrow and dismissive, now widened in utter shock, betraying a sudden, profound recognition. They knew her. The realization hit them, swift and brutal. The whispers from the crowd began to coalesce, forming a name. Nia, still nestled against Aunt Carol, peered up through tear-filled eyes, her small hand clutching her aunt's jacket. She saw her mom, but a version of her mom she had never witnessed. Her initial confusion warred with a nascent sense of awe. Why was Mom here? And why did she look so important, so powerful? Sarah's gaze, as she reached the group, was like a laser beam, cutting through the tension. She walked directly towards Mr. Henderson, her focus unwavering, her entire being radiating an unspoken command. She completely ignored Gary and Sharon for a moment, making it clear who held the true authority in this unfolding drama. Her voice, when she spoke, was low, almost a growl, but it carried an undeniable weight that silenced all other sound. "Mr. Henderson," she began, her eyes boring into his, "I believe you have my sister and my daughter here." Mr. Henderson, caught completely off guard, visibly flinched. The color drained from his face, replaced by a ghastly pallor. He stammered, his carefully constructed composure crumbling into a pathetic display of fear. "Ms. Carter," he choked out, his voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" He was clearly, utterly rattled. His earlier bluster evaporated into thin air. Sarah didn't immediately answer his question. Instead, with a deliberate, almost theatrical movement, she turned slightly, allowing the full impact of her presence to register. Slung casually over her shoulder, glinting under the arena lights, was a championship belt, a symbol of ultimate triumph in the WWE. Its golden plates shimmered, a stark contrast to the drab uniforms of the staff. Or perhaps, for those who didn't immediately recognize the belt, the prominent WWE logo on her jacket, now fully visible, screaming her identity, was enough. The realization slammed into Gary, Sharon, and Mr. Henderson like a physical blow. This wasn't just a staff member. This was the WWE superstar, the enforcer. Sarah Slammer Carter, one of the most dominant and respected figures in the entire organization. The buzz from the gathering crowd intensified, no longer a murmur, but a chorus of excited recognition. "It's Slammer," someone exclaimed, their voice filled with disbelief and awe. "Slammer Carter is here." The whispers spread like wildfire, morphing into gasps and excited chatter. The atmosphere had completely, irrevocably shifted. Sarah's gaze, now colder than ice, swept over Gary and Sharon, lingering on their pale, terrified faces. Her voice, though still low, was laced with an authority that left no room for doubt or argument. "So," she began, each word a hammer blow, "you denied my daughter and my sister entry, claiming their valid VIP tickets were problematic." She paused, allowing the weight of her accusation to settle, her eyes narrowing to dangerous slits. "And you threatened to remove them?" The question hung in the air, a chilling indictment of their actions, delivered by a woman who was now clearly in charge. Gary, Sharon, and Mr. Henderson were now visibly panicking, their earlier bravado having completely evaporated. Their faces, once smug and dismissive, were contorted with a desperate fear, a frantic scramble for self-preservation. They stammered, tripping over their words, a cacophony of excuses tumbling from their lips. "A misunderstanding, Ms. Carter," Gary blurted out, his voice a high-pitched squeak. Sharon chimed in, "Just following security protocols. We didn't realize." Mr. Henderson, ever the manager, attempted a more polished deflection. "There must have been a miscommunication, a lapse in judgment on our part, we assure you." Their apologies were profuse, almost groveling, a stark contrast to their earlier arrogance, driven by the terrifying realization of the colossal mistake they had made. Sarah remained impassive, her expression a mask of controlled fury. Her voice, though still calm, was laced with an undeniable steel, each word a carefully aimed dart. She didn't need to yell. Her quiet authority was infinitely more potent. "There's no misunderstanding here," she stated, her gaze sweeping over the trio, making each of them flinch. "My daughter Nia, a loyal fan of this organization, was made to feel unwelcome and discriminated against, right here, at a place that's supposed to be about inclusion and excitement." Her words resonated with an undeniable truth, cutting deep into the core of their discriminatory actions. The public nature of her statement, delivered with such unwavering conviction, left no room for doubt or further denial. Nia, still clinging to Aunt Carol, felt a profound shift within her. Her tears had dried, replaced by a growing sense of wonder and, finally, understanding. Her mom wasn't just traveling for business. Her mom was a WWE superstar. Not just any superstar, but the enforcer, a champion whose presence commanded immediate respect and fear from those who had just moments ago been so cruel. Nia looked at her mother with wide eyes, a mixture of shock and awe blooming in her small chest. The world, which had seemed so unfair just minutes ago, had suddenly expanded, revealing a new, thrilling dimension to her own life. Aunt Carol, standing beside Nia, felt a surge of triumph, a deep satisfaction washing over her. The vindication was sweet, a powerful counterpoint to the helplessness she had felt. She shared a knowing glance with Sarah, a silent communication of relief and pride passing between the sisters. Justice, it seemed, was finally being served. Sarah turned her full attention to Mr. Henderson, her gaze unwavering, demanding answers. "I want to know why this happened," she articulated, her voice brooking no argument. "And I want to know what you're going to do about it, immediately." Her tone left no room for managerial platitudes or vague promises. She required concrete, demonstrable action. Mr. Henderson, now visibly sweating, his face slick with panic, offered a profuse and utterly theatrical apology. He bowed his head slightly, his words tumbling out in a torrent. "Ms. Carter, please accept my deepest apologies. This is an egregious error, a complete failure on our part. I assure you, I will investigate this matter thoroughly, and I promise you, it will never happen again." He was clearly terrified, not just of Sarah, but of the immense power she wielded within the WWE hierarchy. The thought of the repercussions, the potential damage to his career, hung heavy in the air, but Sarah was not easily appeased. She held up a hand, cutting off his flow of empty assurances. "An investigation isn't enough, Mr. Henderson," she stated, her voice cold and unyielding. She gestured pointedly to Gary and Sharon, who now looked like cornered animals. "I want these individuals removed from their positions, effective immediately. Their behavior is unacceptable and reflects poorly on the entire organization, on everything we stand for." Her demand was absolute, a non-negotiable ultimatum that left no room for negotiation or leniency. She wasn't just seeking an apology. She was demanding accountability. Mr. Henderson, recognizing the gravity of the situation and the unyielding resolve in Sarah's eyes, knew he had no choice. His career, perhaps even his job, depended on his immediate compliance. He quickly called over one of the security guards, who had previously threatened Aunt Carol. His voice, though still shaky, now carried a new, desperate authority. "Escort Mr. Davis and Ms. Miller out of the arena," he commanded, his gaze avoiding Gary and Sharon. "Their employment is terminated, effective immediately." Gary and Sharon's faces fell, their expressions a mixture of shock, humiliation, and utter defeat. They were led away, their heads bowed, their professional lives crumbling around them, a direct consequence of their prejudice. With the immediate issue addressed, Sarah softened her demeanor slightly, turning her attention to Nia. She knelt down, bringing herself to her daughter's eye level, her fierce expression melting into one of warmth and love. "Hey, champ," she said softly, a gentle smile touching her lips. "Ready for the show?" Nia, still a bit stunned by the dramatic turn of events, managed a small, wobbly nod, a teary smile finally breaking through her distress. Her mom, her hero, was here, and everything was going to be all right. Aunt Carol, relief washing over her, placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Thank you, Sarah," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, a mix of gratitude and immense pride for her sister. The unspoken words hung in the air. "You saved the day. You stood up for us." Mr. Henderson, still desperate to make amends and salvage what little dignity he had left, began to grovel once more, showering them with offers. He personally escorted them through the now empty VIP entrance, the path that had been so cruelly denied just moments before. He assured them they would have the very best seats in the house, offering complimentary merchandise as a peace offering, and even went so far as to offer a personal, heartfelt apology directly to Nia, his voice thick with feigned sincerity. The contrast with their earlier treatment was stark, a vivid demonstration of how quickly attitudes could change when faced with genuine power and authority. The message was clear. In the world of WWE, disrespecting Sarah Slammer Carter, and by extension her family, came with severe and immediate consequences. Nia, her tears now completely dried, was utterly starstruck by her mom. The shift in her perception was profound. Just an hour ago, her mother was the busy professional who traveled for business, a loving but somewhat mysterious figure. Now she was the enforcer, a powerful WWE superstar whose mere presence commanded immediate respect, even fear from the very people who had tried to humiliate them. Nia watched, mesmerized, as her mom interacted with other arena staff, who were now overly polite, almost obsequious, their apologies flowing freely. It was a stark lesson in how power worked, and Nia saw, for the first time, the true extent of her mother's influence. As Mr. Henderson, still practically bowing and scraping, led them through the now empty VIP corridor, Sarah turned to Nia and Aunt Carol with a small, knowing smile. "Well, since we're already here, and we've gone through all this trouble," she began, her eyes sparkling, "how about we make the most of it?" Before either of them could respond, she pulled two glossy laminated cards from an inner pocket of her sleek WWE jacket. "Backstage passes," she announced, handing one to Aunt Carol and the other to a wide-eyed Nia. "Consider it an upgrade." This was where the true understanding of Sarah's world began to unfold for Nia. The VIP seats were one thing, but backstage was an entirely different universe. The air hummed with a palpable energy, a mix of adrenaline, anticipation, and the specific, unique scent of liniment and sweat. They walked past bustling crew members, elaborate costumes, and the occasional roar from the arena floor, echoing through the concrete hallways. It was a sensory overload, a vibrant tapestry of sounds and sights that Nia had only ever dreamed of. And then she started meeting them. First, it was the towering figure of Bobby Lashley, who gave Sarah a respectful nod and a warm smile, then ruffled Nia's hair, calling her little champ. Next, it was Bianca Belair, Nia's absolute idol, who, upon seeing Sarah, exclaimed, "Slammer, you made it!" She then knelt down to Nia's level, her braids shimmering, and said, "Hey there, superstar in training. I hear you're a big fan." Nia could barely stammer out a coherent sentence, her face flushed with excitement. Later, she even saw John Cena himself, who shared a brief, friendly exchange with Sarah, acknowledging Nia with a thumbs up. Each encounter further cemented the reality of her mother's incredible life, revealing a world far grander and more exhilarating than Nia could have ever imagined. Every superstar greeted Sarah with genuine respect and warmth, some even recognizing Nia from photos Sarah might have shared, making Nia feel like an honorary member of this incredible family. In a quiet corner, away from the main hustle and bustle, Sarah found a moment to sit down with Nia. Aunt Carol discreetly stepped away, giving them space. Sarah took Nia's small hands in hers, her gaze soft but serious. "Nia," she began, her voice gentle, "I know this is a lot to take in, and I know you probably have a million questions." Nia nodded, still overwhelmed. "Honey, the reason I kept my wrestling career a secret from you for so long, the reason I always said I was traveling for business, was because I wanted to protect you. This life She gestured around them. It's amazing, but it's also incredibly demanding. There's a lot of travel, a lot of time away, and a lot of eyes on you. I wanted you to have as normal a childhood as possible, away from the spotlight, away from the constant scrutiny that comes with being a WWE superstar's child. She paused, taking a deep breath. I also wanted to protect you from the less glamorous sides of the business, the physical toll, the injuries, the constant pressure. I wanted you to just be a kid, to enjoy wrestling for the pure fun of it, without feeling like you had to be part of it because of me. Sarah's eyes welled up slightly. I know it wasn't fair to keep it from you, and I truly am sorry for not being more open. But every decision I made out of love, to try and give you the best life I knew how. Nia, though still processing the monumental revelation, felt a profound sense of understanding wash over her. She looked at her mom, not just as mom anymore, but as the enforcer, Sarah Slammer Carter, a woman of immense strength, dedication, and passion. She saw the sacrifice, the hard work, the sheer will it took to be at the top of this demanding world. A profound sense of pride swelled in her chest, replacing the earlier confusion. She hugged her mom tightly, burying her face in Sarah's shoulder. It's okay, Mom, she mumbled, her voice muffled. I understand. Their quiet moment was interrupted by a production assistant signaling Sarah. It was time for her to prepare for her match. Sarah stood, giving Nia one last squeeze. I have to go get ready now, champ, she said, her voice filled with a new kind of intensity. But I want you to know something. Tonight, every move I make, every slam, every pin, it's all for you. I'm dedicating this performance to my brave, strong little girl. With a wink and a confident smile, Sarah strode off, disappearing into the flurry of pre-match preparations. Nia and Aunt Carol were then led to a special elevated viewing area, offering a panoramic view of the entire arena. The lights dimmed, the crowd roared, and the familiar opening music of the WWE blared through the speakers. Watching from this vantage point, Nia was absolutely captivated. She saw her mother's entrance, the pyrotechnics, the sheer power radiating from her as she walked to the ring. Go, Mom, go, Nia cheered, her voice hoarse, louder than anyone else in the VIP box. She was no longer just a fan. She was a daughter, watching her hero, her mother, perform on the grandest stage. She saw her mom not just as a wrestler, but as a hero, a warrior, a champion. The match was a blur of incredible athleticism and dramatic storytelling. Sarah, the enforcer, lived up to her name, dominating her opponent with a fierce intensity. When the referee's hand slapped the mat for the final count and Sarah's arm was raised in victory, the arena erupted. Sarah, holding up her championship belt, looked directly at Nia in the crowd, a brilliant, triumphant smile on her face. She winked, a secret shared between mother and daughter. Nia was beaming, tears of joy streaming down her face, her heart bursting with pride. After the match, Sarah, still buzzing with adrenaline, made her way back to them. Nia, unable to contain herself, ran up and launched herself into her mother's arms. Mom, you're the best, she exclaimed, her voice filled with adoration. You're the strongest. You're my hero. Sarah hugged her daughter tightly, pressing a kiss to her hair. She looked at Nia, her eyes filled with a deep, unwavering love. Nia, she said, her voice firm but gentle. What happened today at the entrance was wrong. No one, and I mean no one, should ever make you feel less than because of who you are, because of the color of your skin, or because of where you come from. Your voice matters, and today we stood up for what was right. Always remember that, my love. Always stand up for yourself and for others. The lesson, delivered amidst the euphoria of victory, resonated deeply within Nia, a truth etched into her young heart. Days later, the intoxicating hum of the arena still resonated within Nia, a vibrant echo of the most extraordinary day of her life. The experience had been a whirlwind, a kaleidoscope of emotions and revelations that had utterly transformed her world. She clutched her new merchandise, a miniature championship belt, a signed poster of her mom, and a sparkling Slammer t-shirt, like precious treasures. Every glance at them brought back the roar of the crowd, the blinding lights, and the overwhelming pride she felt for her mother. The autographs, meticulously collected from the superstars backstage, were now enshrined on her bedroom wall, a testament to the incredible access she'd been granted. But more than the tangible souvenirs, it was the new understanding of her mom, the powerful, awe-inspiring woman who was Sarah Slammer Carter, that truly lingered. Nia now saw her mother in a completely different light. No longer just the busy, often absent parent who traveled for business. Sarah was now a superhero in her eyes. A strong, powerful woman who not only commanded respect in a male-dominated world, but also stood up for herself and, more importantly, for her daughter. This revelation had a profound and immediate impact on Nia's self-esteem. The sting of the discrimination at the arena entrance, though still a memory, was now overshadowed by the image of her mother's fierce protection and unwavering strength. Nia felt taller, braver, imbued with a newfound confidence that radiated from within. If her mom could be that powerful, then so could she. The incident had irrevocably deepened the bond between Sarah and Nia. The veil of secrecy had been lifted, replaced by an open dialogue and a shared world. Sarah, now more comfortable sharing the intricacies of her life, started to tell Nia stories from the road about the challenges of training, the thrill of victory, and the camaraderie among the wrestlers. Nia, in turn, became even more invested in her mom's journey, watching every match with a discerning eye, understanding the nuances of the sport in a way she never had before. Their bedtime stories now often revolved around legendary wrestling matches and the mental fortitude required to be a champion. Aunt Carol, reflecting on the entire ordeal, felt a profound sense of relief and pride. She was immensely grateful that Sarah had arrived when she did, averting what could have been a truly traumatic experience for Nia. Carol had always known her sister was exceptional, but witnessing Sarah in her element, commanding such respect and wielding such influence, had been truly astounding. She was proud of Sarah's strength and unwavering commitment to justice, and equally proud of Nia for her resilience and understanding. The incident, while deeply unpleasant, had ultimately served to strengthen their family unit, forging an even deeper connection between the three of them. In the aftermath, the WWE, a global entertainment giant, was swift in its response. While no explicit public statement was made directly addressing the specific incident, a carefully worded press release was issued, reiterating the company's unwavering commitment to diversity, inclusion, and a zero-tolerance policy for any form of discrimination. Sarah herself, ever the professional, posted a subtle but powerful message on her social media. A picture of her and Nia backstage with the caption, "Every child deserves to feel safe, valued, and celebrated, especially in places that promise dreams. Let's always champion kindness and respect, Egerton Dutch WWE family. Inclusion matters." It was a clear signal, understood by those who needed to understand, that the organization stood firmly against the behavior displayed by the now former arena staff. Nia's dream of becoming a wrestler, once a whimsical childhood fantasy, now felt tangible and achievable. Seeing her mom, the enforcer, in action, understanding the dedication and discipline it took, ignited a serious spark within her. She started training more seriously, not just playfully mimicking moves, but genuinely focusing on strength, agility, and technique. She joined a local youth wrestling club, surprising the coaches with her natural aptitude and fierce determination. Her mom's championship belt, proudly displayed in her room, served as a constant reminder of what was possible. Nia even started keeping a journal, sketching out new wrestling moves and imagining character personas, her mind already buzzing with ideas for her own future in the ring. The entire experience had been a powerful, albeit harsh, lesson for Nia. It taught her the invaluable importance of standing up for herself, of recognizing injustice and refusing to accept it. It reinforced the unwavering strength of family, the comfort of knowing she had powerful, loving advocates in her corner. And perhaps most importantly, it showed her the immense power of her own identity, that being a young black girl was not a hindrance, but a source of unique strength and perspective. She learned that even heroes, like her mom, faced challenges and adversity, but they overcame them with unwavering strength, integrity, and a fierce belief in what was right. The final image is one of pure, unadulterated confidence. Nia, now a little older, perhaps 9 or 10, stands in her backyard. She's wearing a fitted, custom-made wrestling shirt, a miniature replica of her mom's slammer gear. With a determined glint in her eye, she practices a flawless dropkick on a makeshift mat, her form already impressive. Her movements are fluid, powerful, echoing the grace and strength of her mother. As she lands, she strikes a triumphant pose, mimicking her mom's signature stance after a victory. A wide, confident smile spreads across her face. Not just a child's grin, but the smile of someone who knows exactly who she is and what she's capable of. The sun shines brightly on her, a metaphor for the bright future stretching before her, a future empowered by the lessons learned, the love of her family, and the undeniable legacy of the enforcer, Sarah Slammer Carter. The message is clear. Nia is not just a fan anymore. She is the next generation ready to make her own mark, a true champion in the making.